Hello, and in this video I would like to talk about ultra-wide angle lenses, and specifically for travel photography and even for documentary photography, and why is it important. I mean, sure, ultra-wide angle lenses might not be for everyone, but I mean, it's worth a try. I mean, you don't have to buy one. If your friend have one, you can just lend one, or you can rent one of a place if they provide wide-angle lenses for you to rent. It's worth a try, and the reason why I say this is especially for travel photography and documentary photography is because, well, let me start with the whole story by saying that for the past 2 years I've been doing, well, more like 3 years I've been doing a lot of travel photography, and if someone asked me what's my favorite lens, I would say, well, either my 24-70 f2.8 or my 85 1.2. But when I'm traveling, what I realized for the past 2 to 3 years now, I tend to use my ultra-wide angle lens a lot. Like back then I used to have, like two years ago I used to have my 17-40, and but now I'm using my 16-35 f4L IS USM. It just helps to tell a story in an image more than a normal standard zoom lens. I mean, it's not a normal wide, say 35mm, 28mm, and 24mm. It's different. Or if you're using a crop frame, it's not like using an 18 or 17mm. It's using a 10mm. It's totally a different world. Like, if you're going somewhere and taking pictures of, I don't know, people on the street or something, or even have your model with you, or taking pictures of your friends, it's one thing to take really nice portrait of them, like use f1.2, my favorite lens, 85 1.2 Mark II from Canon. You know, I'll get a really nice blurry background, that really nice character image that the lens produces. Also, the photographer needs to find an angle, an interesting one, and not just a simple portrait with blurry backgrounds. Just saying. But, you know, with a wide angle like 16-35, you can still include a lot of information, and even with f4, if you're using it on a full frame camera body, you can definitely get that blurry background, but not blurry to the point where you can't tell the story anymore. Like, you can't, say you travel to, I don't know, Amsterdam or some other city, and you just take random portrait of your friend, of your model, and so on and so forth, and you have that nice background. You know, if you're using something like a 70mm at f2.8, that, like, the background just melts together and you still see that it's a street, but you don't know where it is, you don't even know that's in Europe. You know, it's not really telling anything, and if you're using a wide angle like this, you can kind of get creative by storytelling, like, okay, it's focused on the person, or it doesn't have to be a person, it can be the object that you want it to focus, and then you still can get that background blur. Sorry, it's summer right now and it's really hot. That's why I keep on touching my face. Anyway, you can get, like, take pictures of your object or whatever you have in the frame, but you still can get that blurry background, but not too blurry to the point where you don't know that it's Amsterdam, or you don't know that it's Rotterdam, or you don't know that it's Berlin. Like, you just don't know your surroundings anymore. So, or even for a crop frame, you know, sure, f4 you still can get blurry background, and f5.6 you still can get some blurry background on a crop frame, even at a wide angle, depending on how far away your object is. I mean, as long as if your object is not to the level, like, of the building, then you still can get that blurry background that make your object stand out. And even better, get lenses with IS, image stabilization, or vibration reduction if you're using Nikon, or optical image stabilization, I think that's what they call on Sigma, and vibration control is what they call in Tamron. Anyway, you get the idea. Any sort of IS, because you can also get even more creative when lenses have IS built in. You can omit certain image blur and kind of create your own style, unique image blur that you really want to create. So really, it is such a fun lens to use, and you can get really creative. I mean, sure, being ultra wide, you shouldn't overuse it, and you have to be careful where you place your object, so your object, your subject doesn't get distorted or too distort. Yeah, but otherwise, it's a lens that really helps tell a lot of story. Yeah, because for the past year at least, when I realized that I'm not really using my 24-70 f2.8 anymore, and I'm like, this lens is mounted on my camera like 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time is just my telephoto lenses, my 70-200, my what's the other lens? 85 1.2. I rarely use my 50mm because I'm not a 50mm kind of guy. I feel like it can either get too wide or just too tele. Like, it can go wider or it can go closer in every time I use that lens. It's just in the middle, which is what I don't really like. Anyway, and those people who like using super telephoto lenses, they will probably understand what I mean by ultra wide angle. That, you know, it's not wide as in like 35mm or 24mm or 28mm. Those people who like extreme telephoto will probably know that 200mm is not really an extreme super zoom. They're probably used to something like starting from 300, 400, 500 and above. You know, so they can tell the story from those lenses, but I'm just telling that this lens also can tell you a lot of stories, especially if you're a documentary photographer and a travel photographer who also likes traveling light, because it really does tell a lot of lenses and just tell a lot of story. And just because it's an f4, it does not mean that you can't get nice shallow depth of field. It's just not as big as, say, if you're using f1.4 or f1.2 or even f2.8 actually. But it also depends on where and how you place your subject. You can get pretty nice blurry background with this lens as well, so you can do some simple portrait shoots with this lens. I mean, you can just still zoom into 35mm and get that really nice portrait. As well as 16mm actually. 16mm you still can do like a whole body shoot, but be careful where you place them because otherwise your subject will get distorted, as very common for your wide angle lenses that you use. And talking about that, like, it's actually like as fun as it is to use ultra wide angle lenses, but you have to keep in mind that you have to know, well, first you have to start shooting, and then you'll know later that, you know, don't overuse it, because it's gonna be like, you know, when you first got your first ND filter or your first polarizing filter, you overuse it, and then maybe a few months later, after you kind of got bored with it, or some people a few years later, you'll be like, why did I use the filter? So same with this. So let's say, you know, wide angle just includes everything in, but sometimes it also can make your subject look too far away, or certain things in the image where you don't want it to look too far away, it can be too far away. So make sure you really know when you use it and what you want to use it for. But otherwise, it's a really fun lens to use, and you can definitely, as I said, tell a lot of story with the lens. You know, let's say if you're traveling to Hallstatt, here we go, and if you're just traveling with a friend and you just want to take pictures of a friend, you know, you still can take picture of your friend, but then you still can include architecture from Hallstatt. You can include the street, how they build their houses on top of mountains, how they build this, build that. You still can include a lot of things, and it still does not look too messy because you still get that bit of blurry background, but you're not getting too blurry, but it's also not too in focus that it's distracting. But that also obviously depends on which modes and settings you use. I mean, if you're shooting at f18, then everything's in focus. But yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you, that ultra wide angle lenses, try it out. Here's for crop frame. Yeah. Oops. I just hit the lens against each other by accident. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you learned something, if not a lot, then little. I just wanted to share my thoughts with wide-angle lenses with you because I love shooting with wide-angle lenses, and if you look at my travel videos, it's pretty much the lens that I bring with me at all times. If I want to omit any lens from my kit, I tend to omit my 24-70 or my 7200, and then just bring my 50mm. I know I said earlier that 50mm is not my favorite focal length, but it has f1.8, which is nice if I still want to do simple portrait. So yeah, that's what I usually bring, and it pretty much covers a lot of things that I want to do anyway. If I want to take pictures of food, if I want to take pictures of human being, if I want to take pictures of architecture, you know, my 50mm 1.8 USM from Canon, STM from Canon, and my 16-35 f4 LIS USM from Canon. Feel like, sure, if you're using other brand, then go with that brand, but I'm just telling you my kit. Those two lenses, 50 and my ultra wide angle, just covers pretty much the whole shoot for me when I usually go for my travel video if I'm backpacking. Otherwise, if I do travel video and I don't need to care a lot about my baggages, like how many things I can bring with me, then sure, I'll bring my 24-70 f2.8, I'll bring my 85-1.2. Then I just bring a lot of things that is, you know, I should be like, that doesn't compromise the shoot. And I'll bring my third and fourth body with me, you know, so then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's it for this episode. I hope you learned something. I'm repeating myself, I know, I'm sorry, I always tend to repeat myself. I'm David Henry Cuhls. See you next time. Bye.